Hi friends, once again I came for the classes for standard 8. I hope that last classes you have learned very clearly and have explained maybe the lesson 14 resources from the Lombard textbook of the 8th class. Lesson 14 part 2. Lesson name resources. And there are a few topics I explained last class, and I have given the definition of the resources. What do you mean by resources? And I have explained there are three different categories of the resources, that are natural resources, human resources, and finally human-made resources. These are the three categories of resources. I have given the explanation, and we discussed again about the natural resources. And what do you mean by natural resources? About that I have given the clear explanation, and I hope that you learned the topic, the paragraph, and what are things will come under the natural resources. Then we have gone for the biotic and abiotic resources, and I explained that itself. Biotic resources, that are the resources derived from the living things, which are the resources derived from the living things that will come under the biotic resources. And abiotic means that are derived from non-living things. I have explained very clearly last class about the biotic and the abiotic resources. Then we went for the next topic, ubiquitous or localized resources. About that also I have given the explanation. Then we finally discussed last class by renewable and non-renewable resources. There are some resources are renewable, and there are some other resources are not at all renewable. If the resources are over, means we are unable to bring forth again. That type of resources are there. That is non-renewable resources. And I have given the examples also. There are petroleum, coals, and these are resources are there. If it is over, means we will not get from the same place, and we have to move from any other place to get the resources. So that type of resources are called non-renewable resources. These are the topic last class we discussed. Now we have to go ahead. There are few topics are remained. So these are the few topics we have to complete by today, and we have to complete this lesson totally, the lesson 14 resources. So now today we are going to deal with the new topic that's called actual and potential resources. Listen me carefully. Now we are going to deal with the actual and potential resources. And what do you mean by actual resources, otherwise the potential resources? So it's very clearly mentioned here. Actual resources are those resources whose location and quantity are known, and we have the technology to exploit and use them. Listen carefully. Actual resources are there, the resources whose location and quantity. Any particular resources are there, and how much the quantity of resources are there, and also where it's located. About these are the different two information. If you are having that type of resources are called actual resources. Are you clear what I said? Listen once again. Actual resources are those resources whose location and quantity are known, and we have the technology to exploit it. Still now there are so many resources are there, we are unable to exploit it. But those resources we are able to exploit, and we know that the quantity and we know the location of the resources. This type of the resources are really called actual resources. Okay. Now we have to go over the next. An example also I give you. There are some minerals that exploit of the Chota Nagpur Plateau. You know that our Western Ghats, Chota Nagpur Plateau is there, that's in Maharashtra. These are the areas we will get such resources. That is the actual resources. We know the quantity, we know the location, we are able to, because our own technologies, we are able to exploit it. Such resources are called actual resources. Now we have to go for the potential resources. So potential resources that mentioned here, these resources which are known to be us, but we do not have the sufficient knowledge or the technology to exploit it. You know that the actual resources, we understood that because we know the location and we know the quantity of the resources and we have the technology to exploit it. Such resources are called actual resources. You listen me carefully. That is called the actual resources. Now we are going to talk about the potentials resources. That potential resources means, it's very clearly mentioned here, those resources which are known to us but we do not have sufficient knowledge and or the technology to exploit it. That means we know the resources but we don't have the technology to exploit it. Such kind of resources will come under the potential resources. Now, if you are asking the question, differentiate between the actual and the potential resources, then you are able to give the reply very clearly. Why? Because of that you learn right now. But second, let me say that actual resources are there, the resources, and we know the quantity, we know the location of such resources, and we have the technology to exploit it. Such resources will come under the actual resources, and the potential resources will come under the resources. We know the resources, we know the maybe the locality, the location, but we don't have the technology to exploit it. Such resources will come under the potential resources. Now I think I hope that you understood about the actual and the potential resources. So you know that maybe there are so many examples also given there, and minerals are under the thick ice cover in Antarctica. There are Antarctica, so many minerals are there in the thick cover of the soil. We know that, but we don't have the maybe the technology to exploit it. That will come under the maybe the potential resources. Now we got to go for the again next topic, the human resources. I hope that you understand the actual and the potential. I hope that maybe renewable and non-renewable you understood, and biotic and abiotic resources, and also natural resources you understood. Because I have given very clearly even the definition and explanation, and more than that I have given the examples also. So you have a very good picture about these are the resources. Now let's go for the next topic. I just want to get your attention towards the next topic, that is human resources. See, listen, that's what you mentioned here, human resources. Now, here mentioned that the greatest and most important resource of any country is its people. You know that when we given the introduction about this lesson, I already informed you that even the human being also will come under the resources. So, it's a human as a resource. And here very clearly says that maybe the greatest and the most important resource of the country, any countries are there, it is the people. Because the people are there, one of the most important resources. If people are not there, how we will excavate it, how we will exploit it, and how we will get these are the resources from the out of the earth. It's very difficult. So human are one of the main and important resources of any country. That's very clearly mentioned here. And it's mentioned that educated and skilled people help in the rapid development of the country. You know, if a human as a resource we are learning, and the humans are there are so many skilled people. So many people, they have too much caliber to exploit it. They have very good knowledge. They have very good information about resources. So these type of skilled human beings are there. That also one of the resources for any countries, even the developed countries, or not developed countries, developing countries, and for all the countries, the people, others, the human beings are the one of the important resources. And the people of the such countries have the ability to add value to raw resources and convert them into useful resources. And you know that we are getting the resources from the earth, that may not be useful. So, because of the ability, others the skill, and the technologies they are using, with that we are converting the raw material towards the maybe useful resources. So that you can understand. So human is needed. Human is also one of the resources, because this human being, they have the skill, they have the ability, and they are changing the raw material towards the useful resources. So we can say that maybe all over the countries we can understand that the greatest and the most important resource of the country of its human. Human beings are the important resource for the any countries. That's very clearly we are getting information for this part. So now we can understand that you know that there are some countries, despite having a large population, are not developed. The people have here lack education of the technical know and how and are therefore not every productive. These countries lag in development. You know that there are some countries, if people are not skilled, if people are not having that much information or ability to maybe exploit the things, then that country is always in the back. They are unable to come in front of the other countries, just like other countries. They are not developed. Why? Because of that, the yields is human resources are not available. Humans are available, but skilled people are not available. Technology is very less. They don't have the technology to exploit the things. That purposely, these are the countries. The people are not there. The skilled people are not there. These countries always in the back, in front of the other developed countries. So we can understand that human also one of the resources. So we discussed today actual and the potential resources, and now we completed human resources. That human also one of the important resources of any countries. That's very clearly we got. Now the next topic we have to see human-made resources. See the human-made resources. Listen me carefully. Okay, next topic we are going to deal with the human-made resources. And what do you mean by human-made resources? Let me explain about that. Human-made resources are the ones that are created by the human using their knowledge and expertise. A common example include buildings, machinery, railways, roads, ships, and etc. See, the human-made resources means human-made resources are those the one that are created by the human. The human being create the resources, that is called human-made resources. Because human is used to make the new resources, and from the raw material they are making to a, because of their own ability, because of their own skill, they are using and they are changing the raw resources towards the useful resources. That purposely we can understand that human-made resources. There are some examples I have given, that the machinery, the buildings are there. You know that early time, you know that our buildings, our homes are such a way we made the buildings are there. But nowadays, you know that because of the technology, we have very good buildings are there. You know, thousands of people, they can live together because of the technology developed. Because of that, the skill of the people, they made new buildings are there. And also, the example, the machines are there. Different type of machines are there. And also, railways are there. And roads and ships. And these all the examples of the human-made resources. So that's the very, very good information we are getting from this part, human-made resources. Because human actually making the resources. Others are converting the raw resources towards the useful resources. That is called human-made resources. And also maybe the resources maybe will come different categories also there. Because we understood that biotic and abiotic and ubiquitous and localized, and also natural resources, and you know that an actual and potential resources, that's all the different type of resources will come under the different categories. And one example I'll give, crops are called maybe agricultural resources. You know that almost all the crops are called agricultural resources. And also the coal and petroleum that will come under the natural gas are also called energy resources. So you see, maybe energy resources are there, agricultural resources are there, and different type of human resources are there, and actual and potential resources are there. So maybe resources may be in different categories. Okay, that is also categorized by the people. Okay, now I hope that you understand about the human-made resources. Now we have to go for the maybe the final the topic of this lesson, the conservation of the resources. Listen me, the last and final topic of this lesson, 14, conservation of resources. And what do you mean by conservation of the resources? You know about the conservation. You know that conservation of the food we understand, and the conservation of everything you understand. But here only they are talking about the resources, how we are able to conserve it. So listen, let me explain about that. It's a fact that the population of the world is growing each year. With the more people, the demand of all kinds of resources keeps multiplying at a rapid rate. Listen carefully. Here mentioned that maybe the early periods, early times, and before the medieval period, we can understand that people are very less. Populations are very less. In almost all the countries, populations are very less. But nowadays, we know that mortality rate also changed because of that, and very good medications came, and we have so many technologies are there. So mortality rates became decreased. That purposely, and humans are living, and because of the medication, and you know that people increased, automatically population also increased. Then you know that needs also will be increased. When the populations are very less, needs also became very less. The population increased, that means the needs also became increased. So, if needs increase, what will happen with the resources? You may have such a question in your mind. But let me explain about all those things. You know that demands and needs of the people are increased, then we have to, and multiplying of the rapid rate, this leads to resources being overexploited. You know that people need, you know that exploitation also need to be going ahead. That means, you know that, for example, little people are there, for this we need that much maybe resources. And people are increased, we know that we have to have more resources to meet their needs of the people. The same way, maybe the people increased, and maybe the demand of the people also increased. So, we are starting over exploitation. And if we are doing over exploitation, what will happen? And here mentioned that maybe because of the over exploitation and exhaustion, and there will be so many damages are there, and misuse also came to take place. You know, so many things that people were misusing, and also over damage for our earth crust, for the resources. These are things also happen because of the needs and the demand of the people increased. The same time, these things also happen. And what has happened? If going like that, if you are maybe making so many resources, are doing so many exploitation, and so many damages are taking place on the surface of the earth, and we are misusing things, means we have to think about the maybe the future, the people, because the coming generation you have to think about. If you are everything we are destroying and over exploitation we are doing that, the coming generation, how they will live? Because there are some examples I have given for the resources, that may be only one time. There are some renewable resources are there, we are able to renew it. But there are some non-renewable resources are there. What we will do if that's through the over exploitation, we are completing the resources means, then think about the future, then how they will do, how they will live. So about that we have to think. So we have to take some steps, and we have to think about that for the over exploitation, and we have to conserve the thing. Then only maybe the coming generation they can also enjoy it with the resources. That's very important, because demands are increased, and maybe the people are increased, and there are needs also increased, and the people started more exploitation, and misuse also taking place, and maybe there are some maybe damage also on the earth crust that also taking place. If moving like that only, maybe within few years, maybe resources may be over. For example, non-resources, renewable resources will be over, and for the coming generation, they will struggle for their own life. So we have to conserve. That purposely we came to a particular topic, conservation of the resources. We have to conserve the resources. If you are conserving, there is no more problem for the future generations. And here mentioned that it is essential that this be served and utilized judiciously and conserved for the future generation. So we have to keep the resources for the future generations. If you are exploiting everything, we are making the damage for earth crust, and we are making the damages for almost all the non-renewable resources, then maybe the future generations may struggle a lot. Because of that, we have to conserve it. That's the explanation we are getting from this paragraph. So maybe our lesson almost over, and this geography, maybe the lesson 14, and part 1 I completed a few topics, and part 2 now we completed maybe the actual and the potential resources, and so next human resources we completed, then the human made resource also we have understand right now, and finally we discuss about the conservation of resources. So we have to conserve our resources. So mainly the topic of resources. So about the resources we have got very brief information from this lesson, and I hope that you understand about these are the lessons, and this is now your task is that you have to read the lesson again and again, and unless you are not understand the lesson, you go through the books very clearly. And every class I used to inform you that you have to understand if there are so many terminologies that are mentioned there, and that is not familiar to you. So you have to do, take a pen with a paper and go through the vocabularies are there. There are so many glossaries are mentioned there. That is not understand. That is not the meaning also you are not knowing. You go through the study, find out the meaning, write it down properly, memorize it. Then you read carefully. Then you will get the clear picture about these lessons. I have given all the examples and all the topic explained very clearly, and I hope that you understood, and you have to read carefully. And you know that there are some exercises mentioned here. These are the exercises also you completed very clearly. Read that textbook again and again. Then finally you find out the answer. Then write it down. Then write the questions also, and I hope that you understand. So let me wind up my class by today's class, lesson 14, and we will see in the next class. Then thank you very much.